We leave tomorrow, Mom. I already sold your beach house. Ethan Carter hadn't meant for his voice to crack, but it did. He stood in the doorway of the old farmhouse kitchen, coffee mug trembling slightly in his hand. Across from him, his mother, Margaret Carter, sat quietly at the wooden table, staring at a faded photograph. In the picture, Ethan, his mother, and his younger brother Lucas were standing on the shore of Crescent Bay, sunburned and smiling. Lucas was 8 then, untouched by fear, untouched by the darkness that would eventually swallow him. Margaret lifted her eyes, slowly. You sold the beach house. Her voice held confusion, not anger. Margaret rarely chose anger. Instead, she carried pain quietly, the way people wear a necklace they never take off, even when it hurts. Ethan swallowed hard. Yes. We need to leave tomorrow. This town, this house, none of it is safe anymore. Margaret's fingers tightened around the photograph. Safe from what, Ethan? What are you not telling me? Ethan looked away. He had promised himself he'd never speak of it again, never open the door to the nightmare he had spent a decade trying to bury. He only managed. Mom, please. Just trust me. But he didn't know one thing. Mom already suspected the truth. And the truth was far darker than he ever imagined. Crescent Bay Beach House wasn't just a property the Carters owned. It was the last place Lucas Carter had ever been alive. 10 years ago, something happened there, something that none of them spoke about again. Something that Ethan told the police was a tragic accident. Something that Margaret had never believed. And tonight, as the wind pressed against the farmhouse windows, that something was coming back. Margaret stood and walked toward the window. A storm was building outside, the sky bruised with dark purple clouds. You had no right to sell it without asking me, she said softly. We leave tomorrow, Mom. I already sold your beach house. Ethan Carter hadn't meant for his voice to crack, but it did. He stood in the doorway of the old farmhouse kitchen, coffee mug trembling slightly in his hand. Across from him, his mother, Margaret Carter, sat quietly at the wooden table, staring at a faded photograph. In the picture, Ethan, his mother, and his younger brother Lucas were standing on the shore of Crescent Bay, sunburned and smiling. Lucas was 8 then, untouched by fear, untouched by the darkness that would eventually swallow him. Margaret lifted her eyes, slowly. You sold the beach house. Her voice held confusion, not anger. Margaret rarely chose anger. Instead, she carried pain quietly, the way people wear a necklace they never take off, even when it hurts. Ethan swallowed hard. Yes. We need to leave tomorrow. This town, this house, none of it is safe anymore. Margaret's fingers tightened around the photograph. Safe from what, Ethan? What are you not telling me? Ethan looked away. He had promised himself he'd never speak of it again, never open the door to the nightmare he had spent a decade trying to bury. He only managed. Mom, please. Just trust me. But he didn't know one thing. Mom already suspected the truth. And the truth was far darker than he ever imagined. Crescent Bay Beach House wasn't just a property the Carters owned. It was the last place Lucas Carter had ever been alive. 10 years ago, something happened there, something that none of them spoke about again. Something that Ethan told the police was a tragic accident. Something that Margaret had never believed. And tonight, as the wind pressed against the farmhouse windows, that something was coming back. Margaret stood and walked toward the window. A storm was building outside, the sky bruised with dark purple clouds. You had no right to sell it without asking me, she said softly. Ethan sighed. Mom, some decisions I have to make alone. Margaret turned sharply. No, Ethan. Families don't run from problems. Sometimes they have to, he said. Especially when the problem has a gun and my address. Margaret's eyes widened. What does that mean? Ethan avoided her gaze. Some people from my past, they've resurfaced. And they're dangerous. It was half true. But the other half, the part involving Lucas, could never be spoken aloud. Margaret clutched the photograph to her chest. Ethan, I'm your mother. I can help.
No, Ethan snapped.
Then softer, trembling, you can't help with this. The room fell silent. It was almost midnight when Ethan heard the knock. 3 soft taps.
Top, top, top.
He opened his bedroom door, walked to the front of the house, and swung the door open. No one was there. Just a white envelope lying on the porch, fluttering in the wind. He picked it up slowly. His name was written across the front. The handwriting was unfamiliar, sharp, angled, impatient.
He tore it open.
Inside was a single line. You can leave town, Ethan. But you cannot run what happened to Lucas. Ethan froze. His throat tightened. His breathing staggered. No one knows, he whispered. No one. But the letter wasn't finished. On the back, another sentence. We're not done with the beach house. Ethan stepped outside, scanning the empty road. The porch light flickered, not from the wind, but as if someone had just walked past it. A shadow? Footsteps? A figure disappearing around the corner? By the time Ethan reached the street, it was empty. He clutched the letter so hard it crumpled in his fist. This wasn't from a stranger. This was from someone who knew
exactly what happened that night.
And someone who wanted him to return. He ran to the kitchen. Mom, Ethan called, breath shaking. Mom, where are you? No answer. He checked the living room. Empty. He checked the porch. Empty. He checked the backyard. Empty. Panic clawed its way up his spine. Mom. He tore through the downstairs rooms, heartbeat thundering in his ears. Nothing. Then he saw it. A sticky note on the refrigerator. Ethan, I'm going to the beach house. I need answers. His stomach dropped. But the handwriting wasn't hers. Under the note was another line, in darker ink. Let her come. Ethan's fingers began to shake violently.
No.
Mom, why did you go alone? The note wasn't signed, but he didn't need a signature. He knew exactly who wrote it. The same person who had sent the letter. The same person who had been at the beach house the night Lucas died. The same person Ethan had prayed was dead. He grabbed his car keys. We're not waiting until tomorrow, he whispered. We're leaving now if we make it out at all. The road to Crescent Bay was long, flat, and empty at this hour. The moonlight stretched across the asphalt like silver ribbons. Every mile brought Ethan back to a memory he wished he could erase. Lucas screaming. The storm. The locked door. The blood. He gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Mom, please be okay. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. A voice he hadn't heard in 10 years whispered. You're late. Ethan slammed the brakes. Where is my mother? The voice chuckled softly. Where she should have been all along, at the beach house. Waiting for the truth. Who is this? But he already knew. The line clicked dead. Ethan threw the phone aside and floored the gas pedal. Minutes later, he pulled into the dirt driveway of the old beach house. The porch light was on, but the house had been sold. No electricity should have been running. The front door was open. A warm, yellow glow leaked out onto the sand. Mom, Ethan called, stepping inside. He froze. Margaret sat in a wooden chair, wrists tied. Her eyes widened with relief when she saw him. Ethan. The front door was open. A warm, yellow glow leaked out onto the sand. Mom, Ethan called, stepping inside. He froze. Margaret sat in a wooden chair, wrists tied. Her eyes widened with relief when she saw him. Ethan. A tall man in dark clothes stood beside her, his back turned to Ethan. The man turned around slowly. Ethan felt his entire world tilt. Ethan's knees dug into the dusty wooden floor as he stared at his mother, her wrists tied, her breath shaking, her eyes filled with a mixture of terror and betrayal. The man holding her, Caleb Monroe. 10 years ago, Caleb had been his father's closest friend. A man Ethan once trusted. A man Ethan thought was dead. Yet here he stood.
Alive.
breathing, smiling like he'd been waiting for this moment forever. "Let her go," Ethan whispered. Caleb tilted his head. "Let her go?
No, Ethan.
You need to earn her freedom." He stepped toward Ethan, the knife still grazing Margaret's skin. "You took something from me years ago. Now you'll give me what I want in return." Margaret shook her head, eyes wide. "Ethan, don't listen to him. Whatever he's saying, whatever he thinks he knows." "He doesn't think he knows," Caleb said sharply. "He knows exactly what he did." Ethan's stomach tightened as 10-year-old memories clawed up from the darkness he'd pushed them into. The stormy night, Lucas screaming for help, Caleb pounding on the locked door, and Ethan frozen. Margaret's voice broke through the memory. "Ethan, look at me. Tell me the truth. Did you hurt your brother?" Tears pricked Ethan's eyes. "I didn't mean to, Mom. I swear to God." Caleb barked a laugh. "Oh, Margaret, your son didn't mean to. What a sweet lie." "Shut up," Ethan snapped. "You weren't even there when it happened." Caleb's smile vanished. "I was there." Ethan's breath caught.
"What?"
Caleb moved toward the dusty window, looking out at the dark sea. "I was outside this house. I came that night because I knew something was wrong. Your father called me. He said he heard screaming on the phone before the call dropped. So I drove down here." He turned back toward Ethan. "And I saw you through the window, Ethan. Standing there, watching your little brother drown." Margaret's face crumpled. "Ethan, please tell me that's not true." "I didn't." Ethan tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. "I wasn't watching. I was trying to help." Caleb slammed his fist onto the table, making Margaret jump. "You locked him inside the storage room. You shut the door on a child who trusted you." Ethan's heart pounded so hard he almost couldn't hear anything else. "That's not how it happened," he whispered. "Then explain it," Caleb snapped. "Go on. Tell your mother why her youngest son died on a night you promised you'd watch him." Margaret's tears were falling silently now. Ethan finally looked her in the eyes. It was time. He had to say it. "Mom." Lucas went into the storm. He said he heard something outside the beach house, like someone calling his name. Caleb's eyes narrowed. "And you let him go alone?" "No," Ethan said. "I went after him. I grabbed him just before a wave pulled him toward the rocks." Margaret's breath hitched. "Then how did he?" "He wasn't responding," Ethan whispered. "He was shaking, crying. I took him into the storage room because it was the warmest place in the house. I wanted him to calm down." Caleb scoffed. "Is that the story you fed the police?" "It's the truth." Ethan snapped. "The storm blew the door shut behind us. I tried to open it, Mom, I swear I tried. But the handle jammed." He swallowed hard. Lucas panicked. He kept saying he couldn't breathe, that he needed air. "I tried to break the window. I tried everything. But the water started filling the room."
"Fast."
Margaret's eyes widened. Lucas panicked. He kept saying he couldn't breathe, that he needed air. "I tried to break the window. I tried everything. But the water started filling the room."
"Fast."
Margaret's eyes widened. Water. That part was never in the police report. Ethan wiped his face. "He slipped under the water before I could reach him. I held him, but it was too dark. The waves hit the outside walls so hard the whole room was shaking." Margaret sobbed into her shoulder. "And when the police asked what happened," Ethan said, voice cracking, "I told them I didn't know how the room flooded. I told them it was an accident. Because I couldn't bear to say what I really felt." Caleb folded his arms, eyes cold. "And what was that?" Ethan finally spoke the secret he had carried for a decade. "I felt like it was my fault. That if I hadn't taken him outside, if I hadn't stayed even a second behind him, Lucas would still be alive." For a moment, the room was utterly silent. Margaret's breathing softened. Her shoulders dropped. This wasn't the confession Caleb wanted. This was the truth Ethan had never dared to say aloud. But Caleb wasn't finished. He took a slow step forward. "Beautiful story," he said coldly. "One problem. I saw something different that night." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" Caleb leaned closer. When I got to the window, Lucas was still alive. He was calling your name. And you were standing by the door, not trying to open it. That's not. You left him, Caleb growled. You let him drown because you were angry. Because Lucas broke your father's fishing rod earlier that day. What? Ethan's eyes widened. That's insane. You shoved him, Caleb shouted. I saw it. Margaret gasped. Ethan felt everything drain from his body. It wasn't true. It couldn't be true. No, you're lying, Ethan whispered. Caleb smirked. Oh. Then why did your father tell me you admitted it on the phone? Ethan froze. His heart twisted painfully. My father? Caleb nodded. The night before he died.
He called me. Drunk. Crying.
He said he couldn't live with what he knew. He said you confessed to him. Ethan shook his head violently. I never said that. Dad knew I didn't kill Lucas. But then something clicked. Something he hadn't thought about in years. His father had called someone that night. He had been crying. And he had said, someone is lying, Ethan. Someone was there. Someone saw. Ethan had assumed his father was talking about him. Now he wasn't so sure. Margaret's voice trembled. Ethan, did you confess something to your father?
No, Ethan pleaded.
Mom, you know me. You raised me. You know I loved Lucas more than anything. I would never. Caleb pressed the knife harder against Margaret's skin, just enough to draw a thin line of blood. Stop lying. Ethan snapped. Then tell. Your truth, Caleb. Tell her what you were doing at the house that night. Why you were even near us. Why Dad called you, and not the police first. Caleb's jaw tightened. He didn't expect that question. Ethan stood slowly, fists clenched. You say you saw everything? You want to accuse me of killing my brother?
Fine.
Then tell my mother what you were hiding that night. Margaret looked at Caleb. Her face didn't hold fear anymore. It held suspicion. What were you doing at my beach house, Caleb? She asked. Caleb wiped the blood from the knife with his thumb. I was there, he said quietly, because your husband trusted me. Then why didn't you go to the police? Margaret asked. Why didn't you help? Caleb hesitated. Something flickered behind his eyes. Ethan saw it.
Guilt.
You were scared, Ethan said. Weren't you? You weren't some hero. You weren't even there to save Lucas. Caleb's lips tightened. You were running, Ethan continued. Running from someone or something. And you used my family as cover. Margaret's eyes widened. Caleb, is that true? Caleb didn't answer. 10 years ago, Ethan said, voice low. You didn't just show up. You were hiding in the guest shed for days. Dad told me he found your clothes there.
Vet. Dirty.
Margaret clutched the arms of the chair. You mean Caleb was living on our property? Ethan nodded. And not because he wanted to help us. Because he wanted to avoid the police. Caleb's face twisted in anger. Shut up, Ethan. Ethan stepped closer. You didn't see Lucas drown through a window, Caleb. Because you were passed out in the shed that night. Dad told me. Margaret gasped. Caleb, is that true? Caleb's jaw clenched, so tight it trembled. And that was answer enough. He had lied. 10 years of lies. Ethan lifted his chin. You weren't there to see what happened. You couldn't have. Which means every single thing you told my mother, every accusation, was something you made up. Caleb lunged forward. But Ethan was faster. He grabbed Caleb's wrist, forcing the knife upward. Caleb grunted, fighting back, but Ethan's adrenaline surged. Margaret cried out, Ethan! The two men crashed into the table, the lamp falling and shattering, sparks flying. Caleb pinned Ethan against the wall, spittle flying from his lips. You think you can erase what you did? You think you can bury me again? Ethan shoved him back. You're insane, Caleb. Caleb swung the knife, missing Ethan by inches, and embedding the blade into the wooden beam. Margaret screamed. Ethan tackled Caleb to the ground. They thrashed across the floor, kicking up dust, crashing into old furniture. The storm outside raged, lightning flashing violently through the open doorway. Ethan grabbed the knife. But Caleb slammed his fist into Ethan's jaw, sending him rolling across the floorboards. Ethan's vision blurred. Caleb climbed onto him, squeezing his throat. Ethan's breath faded. The world dimmed. Then suddenly,
Bang!
Caleb froze. Another.
Bang!
Glass shattered. Wind blasted through the house. Margaret screamed his name. Ethan. But Ethan couldn't move. He drifted into darkness. The last thing he saw was the shadow of a third person stepping through the doorway. Someone neither of them expected. Someone who had been watching the whole time. The world buzzed faintly, muffled voices, crashing waves, a ringing noise inside Ethan's skull.
He blinked. Blur.
Blink again. Shapes slowly formed. The cracked ceiling of the beach house, the broken lamp, the dark storm outside. And then, a silhouette standing in the doorway.
Tall.
Still. Soaked with rain. Thunder rumbled behind the figure like a drum roll. Caleb froze mid-breath, his hands still locked around Ethan's throat, but no longer squeezing. His face went pale. "You," Caleb whispered. His voice was suddenly small. The figure stepped into the room, and lightning illuminated her face. It was a woman, with short brown hair.
Dark eyes.
A badge clipped to her belt. Margaret gasped.
Detektive Hale.
The woman gave a brief nod. "Hello, Margaret." Then her eyes shifted to Caleb. "Caleb Monroe. I've been looking for you for a long time." Ethan attempted to push himself upright, coughing violently. His vision still swam, but he understood enough to know this woman was someone powerful, someone Caleb feared. Caleb stumbled backward. You are dead," he stammered. "I saw the report. I saw your car go off the cliff." "Not dead," Detective Hale said calmly. "Just missing. Until someone sent me a tip, telling me you were still alive." Her gaze flicked to Ethan for a split second. Ethan frowned. He had never sent any tip. Caleb glared. "You're lying," he hissed. "You didn't come here because of me. You came because of him." He jabbed a shaking finger at Ethan. "Because he killed his brother." Hale didn't even blink. "That's not why I'm here." "Then why are you here?" Detective Hale stepped deeper into the room, her boots crunching over broken glass and sand. "I'm here," she said, "because the truth about what happened to Lucas Carter is not what anyone thinks." Ethan's chest tightened, and Margaret's face changed, frozen between hope and dread. Caleb spat at the floor. "You don't know anything." Hale's eyes locked onto him, sharp as a blade. "I know everything, including what you did the night Lucas died, and why you kept returning to this house for weeks afterward."
She paused.
"And why Ethan sold the house was the worst thing that could have happened for you." Caleb's face twisted. "Ethan didn't sell it," he barked. "He couldn't sell it. He's covering his tracks." "No," Hale said. "He did." She reached into her coat and pulled out a folder, dropping it onto the table. Official documents. The sale was processed 4 days ago. Caleb blinked rapidly, shaking his head. "No, that house can't. It wasn't supposed to be owned by anyone else." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "What does that mean?" Caleb didn't answer. He bolted for the back door. "Stop."
Hale Barkit.
But Caleb was fast, too fast for his age. He darted past old shelves, overturned furniture, the dusty hall, and into the shadows. Hale drew her gun and ran after him. "Ethan, stay with your mother," she yelled. But Ethan was already on shaky feet. "Mom, can you walk?" Margaret nodded, though her legs trembled. "Go," she whispered. "I'll be okay. Just be careful." Ethan hesitated. Margaret took his hand, squeezed it. "Ethan, find out the truth." His heart tightened. He kissed her forehead, grabbed a fallen flashlight from the floor, and sprinted after Hale. Rain hammered the beach like fists. Wind tore across the sand, sharp as needles. Lightning spiderwebbed across the sky. Ethan saw footprints in the wet sand, Caleb's prints, running toward the far end of the shore. And Hale was already ahead, her flashlight dancing wildly as she pursued. Ethan shouted, "Caleb, stop." Caleb didn't even turn. He vanished behind a rock formation, the same one Lucas used to climb as a kid. Detective Hale reached the rock seconds later, vanished behind them. Ethan caught up, breath ragged. He rounded the corner and froze. Caleb was standing at the entrance of an old storage cabin built into the rocks. It had been boarded up for years, ever since the night Lucas died. Now the boards were torn off. The door hung open. Caleb held a rusted crowbar like a weapon. Hale aimed her gun. "Drop it, Caleb." Caleb smirked. "You'll shoot me? You couldn't even shoot your own partner. That's why he died." Hale's jaw clenched. That was different. Caleb's voice rose, raw and cracked. "You think you know the truth? You think you can stop what's coming? You don't understand any of it." The storm crackled overhead. Ethan stepped closer. "What don't we understand?" Caleb's eyes locked onto Ethan, wide, manic, terrified. "You think Lucas drowned?" He shook his head violently. "But the tide wasn't strong enough that night. The water wasn't high enough. That storage room shouldn't have flooded like that."
Finnet.
"You're lying," Ethan said, though his voice faltered. "It did flood. I saw." Caleb pointed the crowbar directly at him. "Because the flood didn't come from the storm. It came from under the house." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What?" Caleb laughed, a horrible, broken sound. "Your father knew. That's why he called me. He found the tunnel." Ethan blinked. "What tunnel?" Hale's eyes widened. "You didn't tell him?" she asked softly. "Tell me what?" Ethan cried. Lightning flashed again. Caleb jabbed the crowbar toward the cabin behind him. "The tunnel under the beach house," he roared. "Your father found it. Lucas found it. I found it. And now you're going to find it." Ethan felt the bottom drop out of his world. Tunnel. Under the house. Under the storage room where Lucas died. Hale stepped closer, guns still steady. "Caleb, the tunnel was sealed after the investigation." Caleb smiled, eyes blazing with something unhinged. "It was sealed from the outside, not the inside." Ethan swallowed hard. "What's inside it?" Caleb stared straight at him. "The reason Lucas died." The wind howled like a creature screaming. And then Caleb turned and sprinted into the storage cabin. "Caleb!" Ethan yelled. Hale took off after him. Ethan followed. The storage cabin smelled exactly the same as Ethan remembered.
Salt. Mold.
Rotting wood. Except now, something else. Cold air. Air from below. A section of the floorboards near the back had been ripped open, revealing a narrow stairway of crumbling stone descending into complete darkness. Caleb's voice echoed up the tunnel. "You want the truth, Ethan? Come and get it." Hale shouted into the dark. "Caleb, stop. You don't know what you're doing." He laughed. "Oh, I know exactly what I'm doing." Ethan stepped toward the stairs, but Hale grabbed his arm.
Ethan.
"Listen to me." Her eyes were serious, almost pleading. "You don't understand what's down there." Ethan blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Your father didn't tell you everything before he died. And the police didn't release everything in the official report." "What things?" Ethan demanded. Hale took a breath. "Years before Lucas died, someone else went missing from Crescent Bay. A girl. 12 years old." Ethan felt a tremor crawl down his spine. "What does that have to do with us?" Hale's voice dropped. "Their body was found in the tunnel." Ethan stepped back, heart pounding. "But the police never told." "Because the family begged us not to release it," Hale said. "And because your father insisted it had nothing to do with Lucas' accident." Ethan shook his head. "My father would never hide." "It was for your mother," Hale said quietly. "She was already falling apart. He thought it would destroy her." Lightning cracked overhead again. "And Caleb," Ethan whispered. Caleb Monroe was the last person seen near the girl before she vanished. Ethan's world tilted. "He was the suspect," he whispered. "Until he disappeared the night Lucas died." Ethan felt a surge of nausea. "That's why you were here that night," Ethan breathed. "Not for Lucas. Not for us. You came to hide." Caleb's voice echoed from deep below. "Shut up and come down here, Ethan." Ethan turned to Hale. "He's dangerous. And my mother." We need to go down. Together. Ethan lifted his flashlight. The stairway yawned open like a throat swallowing the light. He drew a breath and stepped down. The tunnel smelled like wet earth and rust. Water dripped from the ceiling. The walls were carved stone. Older than the house above. The light beam flickered across something scratched into the stone. Stay out. Or die down here. Like the others. Ethan shivered. Others, he whispered. Hale spoke softly behind him. Rumors. Old stories. People disappearing along this beach. Others reported water rising suddenly in the house. We never found proof. Ethan ran his fingers over the carved words. Lucas had scratched similar warnings on his bedroom furniture when he was younger. He always said the beach house heard things. He always said someone whispered his name at night. Caleb's footsteps echoed ahead. Ethan, he called. His voice was almost triumphant now. You're getting close. The tunnel widened into a larger space, like a cavern. And then Ethan froze. A pool of dark water filled the center. Black. Still. Silent. The air tasted metallic. Hale whispered, "Oh my God." Ethan stepped closer. In the water, just beneath the surface,
Was something metallic. A door.
a metal hatch, half submerged, as if something below had forced it upward. Caleb stood beside it, his eyes wild, glowing in the flashlight beam. This, Caleb said breathlessly, is where the truth lives. Ethan's heart rattled. What is it? Caleb knelt and slapped his palm on the metal. It leads under the beach house. Under the storage room. Under the place Lucas died. Ethan felt cold sweat roll down his back. And why would Lucas go near this? He whispered. Caleb smiled, too wide. Because he heard someone calling his name. Lightning crackled outside, and the tunnel vibrated. Caleb looked at Ethan with something like pity. Lucas didn't die because of you, Ethan. He pointed at the hatch. He died because of what's down there. And now, so will you. Before Ethan could react, Caleb grabbed the hatch wheel and spun it open. The tunnel roared. Water exploded upward, dragging Ethan, Hale, and Caleb off their feet, and plunging them into blackness, into the place where Lucas Carter had taken his final breath. Water swallowed Ethan whole, a cold, suffocating black water.
His ears rang.
His limbs flailed. His lungs screamed. Something dragged him down. Not hands, not a body. A current.
A pull.
Like the ocean itself wanted him. He tried to scream, but water filled his mouth. A beam of light passed above him, Detective Hale's flashlight, tumbling through the water. Then another shadow. Caleb thrashing, kicking, struggling. The roar muted. Everything drowned in darkness. Ethan's vision blurred. Spots of silver and blue flickered like stars underwater. He reached upward. He felt nothing. He sank deeper. His chest constricted. Lungs burning.
No.
Not like this. Not the way Lucas died. His fingers scraped something metal. A ladder. He grabbed it and pulled himself up with everything he had left. His head broke the surface. He inhaled a ragged breath. The air was stale, damp, but it was air. He clung to the ladder, coughing violently. A weak voice echoed in the chamber. Ethan, over here.
Detective Hale.
He turned. Hale was clinging to a rock ledge near the wall. Rainwater dripped from the ceiling into the dark pool below. Ethan swam toward her and helped her climb fully onto the ledge. You, Hale choked out. You okay? He nodded, panting. Where's Caleb? Hale raised her light. Across the cavern on another ledge. Caleb stood dripping, shaking uncontrollably, but smiling. A strange, eerie smile. Lightning from above flickered through cracks in the ceiling, exposing the full chamber. A stone-lined room beneath the beach house. Circular. Large. And old. Much older than anything built by the Carters. Ethan whispered, "What is this place?" Hale shook her head slowly. I've never seen this in any blueprint, not even the county archives. This place shouldn't exist. Caleb laughed, a sound that echoed off every wall. Oh, it exists. And it's been here longer than any of us. Ethan glared. You said Lucas heard someone down here. Caleb nodded.
He did.
Hale stepped forward.
Who?
Caleb tilted his head like he was listening to something only he could hear. Thunder cracked above them. The same voice I heard, he whispered. The same one your father heard. The same one that girl heard before she went missing. Ethan's blood turned to ice. Hale raised her gun. Caleb, enough games. You're going to tell us what's really going on. Caleb smiled wider. I already told you. The truth is down here. And if you want it. He pointed at another metal hatch on the far wall. This one wasn't flooded. Not yet. You've got to go deeper. Ethan looked at the hatch. He didn't want to go anywhere near it. But something in his gut twisted. A whisper of a memory. Lucas, crying, saying someone was calling his name from below the house. What if Lucas wasn't imagining it? Hale hissed under her breath. He's insane. This is some kind of trap. Is it? Caleb asked quietly. He stepped closer to the hatch, resting a hand on it. Your father died for this secret. Lucas died because of this secret. And if you walk away now, more people will die. Ethan's throat tightened. He wasn't sure what scared him more, Caleb's words, or the part of him that believed them. Ethan and Hale climbed across the slick rocks toward the far hatch. Caleb backed away, giving them space, like he was letting them walk freely into their own doom. Ethan knelt beside the hatch. It was the same design as the one that flooded the first chamber. Heavy steel, a circular wheel, bolts rusted by salt water. Hale touched the metal carefully. This wasn't made by the Carters, she whispered, or anyone from Crescent Bay. These are military-grade locks. Ethan blinked. Military?
Halen 어땠?
And some of the missing person cases near this coastline go back 40, 50 years, all with similar patterns. Ethan stared at the hatch. What does that mean?
Hale swallowhead.
It means something was built here. Something the government covered up. Caleb laughed behind them. Oh, Detective Hale. Still thinking like a cop. But this isn't government. This is much older than that. Ethan turned. Then what is it? Caleb stepped forward. Lightning flashed. His face briefly illuminated, pale, haunted. It's a door, he whispered, to everything they never wanted us to see. Hale raised her gun again. You open it, she ordered. And don't try anything. Caleb shrugged. Then he spun the wheel. The metal groaned, grinding against rust and time. Ethan felt a cold gust of air slip through the cracks. Wet, stale, and oddly warm beneath the cool tunnel air. Hale's grip tightened. Everyone step back, she said. Caleb stepped aside. The hatch creaked open.
Darkness.
Not the natural kind. Not shadow. Something thicker, like black fog. Ethan's flashlight barely pierced it. He and Hale exchanged a look.
Halen 어땠?
We go together. No splitting up. Ethan steadied his breath. And they stepped inside. The corridor beyond the hatch was narrow. Stone walls. Dripping water. A faint humming, like airflow moving through a giant pipe. Ethan whispered, What I asked this place? Hale shook her head.
No idea.
But someone built this intentionally. Footsteps echoed behind them. Caleb followed, humming softly.
Hale spoon.
Stay back. Caleb grinned, raising his hands. Just making sure you don't get lost. Ethan ignored him and kept moving. After 10 feet, the corridor widened into a larger hallway. And on the wall, light flickered. Dim, greenish. They have power down here? Ethan whispered.
Hale halet.
That's impossible. Caleb chuckled.
Impossible? No.
I told you, this place has been alive for years. You just didn't know where to look. Ethan and Hale approached the source of the green light. A small panel flickered on the wall. Old, cracked, but functional. Hale brushed dust away. Symbols. Numbers.
Coordinates.
This is a monitoring system, Hale muttered. Probably for water pressure or structural stability. Ethan frowned. Why would a beach house need that? Hale's eyes darkened. It wouldn't. A low rumble vibrated under their feet. Ethan stepped back. Hale steadied him. It's just pressure shifting, she said. But she didn't sound convinced. Caleb moved past them. You're wasting time. The real answer is up ahead. Ethan took a breath and followed. The corridor opened into a massive, circular room. The ceiling was high. A metal walkway wrapped around the perimeter. Water pooled below in a dark reservoir. But the walls were covered in names. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Carved into stone, burned into metal, written in paint. All different handwriting styles. Different eras. Different ages. Ethan whispered, What is this? Hale's face went pale. It's a record, she breathed, of the missing. Caleb walked to the closest wall and ran his fingers over the names with a strange reverence. Everyone who ever disappeared from Crescent Bay, he whispered, and a few from towns beyond. People thought they drowned, ran away, vanished. But they didn't. Ethan's heart hammered. He stepped closer, scanning the names. One stopped him cold. Lucas Carter. 2015. His little brother's name. Ethan touched the carving with trembling fingers. Hade spirit, Ethan. I'm so sorry. He closed his eyes. But when he opened them, something else caught his breath. Right beneath Lucas's name. Carved faintly newer. Ethan Carter. 2025. Ethan staggered back. What? Who carved that? Caleb smiled. I did. Ethan's skin crawled. Why? Caleb stepped forward. Because, Ethan, your name belongs here. Just like your father's. Ethan froze. My father? Hale spun toward Caleb. What do you mean? Caleb pointed at a name etched high on the wall. Thomas Carter. 2015. Margaret's husband. Ethan's father. Lucas's father. Dead on paper. But now carved here. Hale's breathing quickened. Your father didn't die in a boating accident, she whispered. He was taken. Ethan shook his head violently. No, he drowned. They found the boat. Caleb laughed softly. They found pieces of the boat. But they never found him. You know why? He stepped closer, eyes fever bright. Because he came down here. For the truth. For the same voice that called Lucas. Ethan swallowed hard. What voice? Caleb tilted his head as if listening. Then he whispered, the one calling you now. And deep within the chamber, from the dark reservoir below, Ethan heard it. A voice. Soft. Calling his name. Ethan, his blood froze. Hale grabbed his arm. Don't move. It's not real. It's sound distortion. Echoes. But Ethan heard it again. Clearer. Ethan, help me. His breath caught. It was a child's voice. A familiar child. Lucas. The chamber vibrated with the soft, impossible voice. Ethan froze. Every muscle locked. Every memory of Lucas, laughing, shouting, swimming, crying, stabbed through him at once like shards of glass. Hale tightened her grip on his arm. Ethan, she whispered, listen to me. That is not Lucas. But the voice came again. Clearer. Closer. Ethan, please help. Ethan's throat closed. That's him, he whispered. That's my brother. Caleb stepped toward the reservoir, smiling with an almost serene madness. You hear it now, don't you? He whispered. It's the same voice that called me back here after the girl disappeared. The same voice that dragged Lucas into the tunnel. The same voice your father followed. Ethan shook his head. No, my father didn't come down here. He would have told us. Caleb's expression twisted. He tried, but the house wouldn't let him. Hale raised her gun. Caleb, step away from the water. He ignored her, kneeling at the edge of the reservoir. His reflection rippled. Lucas, he whispered into the dark. You were always a loud one. Go on, tell your brother the rest. Silence. Then, Ethan, don't leave me. Ethan's eyes stung. He took a step toward the water. Hale yanked him back hard. No. Ethan. Don't listen. Ethan's voice cracked. That's him. How can you say that's not him? Because Lucas is dead, Hale said quietly. And whatever is making that voice knows exactly what you want to hear. Caleb let out a soft chuckle. You still don't get it, detective. This place isn't haunted. It's hungry. He looked at Ethan. And it wants you. The surface of the water rippled. Slowly. Deliberately. Like something beneath was rising. Ethan took a step back. What's happening? Hale aimed her flashlight at the reservoir. And the beam hit something just below the surface. A shape. Clearer. Ethan, help me. His breath caught. It was a child's voice. A familiar child. Lucas. The chamber vibrated with the soft, impossible voice. Ethan froze. Every muscle locked. Every memory of Lucas, laughing, shouting, swimming, crying, stabbed through him at once like shards of glass. Hale tightened her grip on his arm. Ethan, she whispered, listen to me. That is not Lucas. But the voice came again. Clearer. Closer. Ethan, please help. Ethan's throat closed. That's him, he whispered. That's my brother. Caleb stepped toward the reservoir, smiling with an almost serene madness. You hear it now, don't you? He whispered. It's the same voice that called me back here after the girl disappeared. The same voice that dragged Lucas into the tunnel. The same voice your father followed. Ethan shook his head. No, my father didn't come down here. He would have told us. Caleb's expression twisted. He tried, but the house wouldn't let him. Hale raised her gun. Caleb, step away from the water. He ignored her, kneeling at the edge of the reservoir. His reflection rippled. Lucas, he whispered into the dark. You were always a loud one. Go on, tell your brother the rest. Silence. Then, Ethan, don't leave me. Ethan's eyes stung. He took a step toward the water. Hale yanked him back hard. No. Ethan, don't listen. Ethan's voice cracked. That's him. How can you say that's not him? Because Lucas is dead, Hale said quietly. And whatever is making that voice knows exactly what you want to hear. Caleb let out a soft chuckle. You still don't get it, detective. This place isn't haunted. It's hungry. He looked at Ethan. And it wants you. The surface of the water rippled. Slowly. Deliberately. Like something beneath was rising. Ethan took a step back. What's happening? Hale aimed her flashlight at the reservoir. And the beam hit something just below the surface. A shape. Small. Pale. Floating just beneath the water. Ethan's heart stopped. Hale grabbed him. Don't. It's not him, Ethan. But Ethan stared. And the shape rose just enough for him to see blonde hair drifting in the water like seaweed. Lucas's hair. No. Ethan whispered. No. He tried to pull away, but Hale held him. Hale's voice was low, shaking. It's not a body. It's a projection. That's not human. But the thing under the water slowly rotated. Enough for a face to turn toward them. A child's face. Eyes closed. Skin pale. Lucas. Ethan's knees buckled. Oh my God.
Hale swallowed.
It's mimicking him. Caleb watched Ethan with fascination. You're the only one it wants. Don't you see? It's been calling you since the day Lucas died. The childlike form drifted closer to the surface. Its eyes snapped open. Milky white. Not Lucas's eyes. The illusion shattered. Ethan stumbled back, breath ripped from his lungs. The thing sat upright in the water. Its jaw cracked open wider than a human jaw should. A long, cold breath escaped its mouth. Ethan screamed.
Hale firet.
The bullet hit water. But the creature dissolved into ripples, like smoke evaporating. The reservoir went still. Too still. Caleb clapped slowly, smiling. Impressive, detective. But you can't kill something that isn't alive. Hale kept her gun raised. Ethan moved back. Stay behind me. Ethan couldn't move. His body shook violently with adrenaline, fear, loss. Caleb finally stopped smiling. His voice softened, almost genuinely. You think Lucas died alone. But he didn't. Your father died trying to save him. Ethan jerked his head toward him.
What?
Caleb nodded. Your father was the first one to hear the voices in the house. He found the tunnel one night, just like Lucas. And you know what he found down here? Ethan's voice was whisper-thin. What? Caleb pointed at the reservoir. The same thing you just saw. The chamber trembled again, a deep, low vibration that made dust fall from above.
Hale tenset.
We need to leave. This whole structure isn't stable. Caleb laughed wildly. Oh, it's very stable. It's older than the town, older than any map, and it doesn't like people leaving. Ethan's breath hitched. Why us? Why our family? Caleb's voice lowered. Because your father found something. Something that shouldn't exist. He pointed behind Ethan, to a dark tunnel leading deeper into the earth. That's where his body is. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. No, they never found his body. Exactly. Caleb nodded. Because he never left. Hale stepped in front of Ethan. We're not going anywhere with you. But Caleb shook his head slowly. It doesn't matter what I want. It wants Ethan. It always has. The chamber lights flickered. Walls groaned. The water stirred again. Hale grabbed Ethan's arm. We're leaving now. But when she turned toward the hatch they came through, it slammed shut. A deafening boom echoed through the chamber.
Hale spoon.
What the? Caleb smiled calmly. It's awake now. Ethan felt something cold coil around his legs. He looked down and screamed.
A hand.
A pale, waterlogged hand, reaching out of the reservoir and gripping his ankle.
Hale.
Ethan shouted.
Hale firet instantly.
The water exploded. The hand dissolved, but another hand reached up behind it. Then another.
And another.
Hands climbing from the reservoir. Some small, some large, some with rings still on their fingers. All dead. All reaching for Ethan.
Hale şövelet ham bakırt.
Run. But the only exit was the tunnel Caleb pointed to. The one that led deeper underground. The hatch behind them was sealed. The reservoir surged forward. Water spilled across the stone floor. Dead hands clawed, dragged, scraped. Caleb backed toward the deeper tunnel, stepping into the darkness. This place won't let you die the easy way, he said softly. You want to know what happened to Lucas? To your father? He motioned for Ethan to follow. Then come with me. Hale grabbed Ethan's hand. Don't go with him. Ethan, look at me. Ethan's breath shook violently. Hands reached for his legs. The water swelled, and the voice whispered one more time. Ethan, please don't leave me again. Lucas's voice. Ethan's heart shattered. He looked at Hale, at Caleb, at the reservoir of the dead. Then he made his choice. He ran, straight into the darkness. Toward Caleb, toward the truth, toward whatever waited below. Hale shouted behind him.
No.
But the darkness swallowed him whole. Ethan ran blindly into the tunnel. Cold air rushed past him in violent gusts, pulling at his clothes, shoving him deeper into the earth. He stumbled, caught himself, kept running. Behind him, Hale's voice echoed, muffled by the roar of water and the pounding in his skull. Ethan.
Stop.
Come back. He didn't. He couldn't. Lucas's voice still rang through his mind. Ethan, please don't leave me again. The tunnel sloped downward in a slow spiral. The deeper he went, the warmer it got. Humid, suffocating. Finally, he saw Caleb's silhouette ahead, standing perfectly still, waiting. Ethan slowed, chest heaving. You lied, he gasped. You're trying to trick me. Caleb turned slightly, just enough for Ethan to see the side of his face.
No.
You came here because you knew I was telling the truth.
His voice was calm.
Almost tender. And because you need answers. Ethan clenched his jaw. My brother is dead. Caleb smiled faintly.
Yes.
He is. Ethan's chest tightened. Then what the hell was that voice? Caleb stepped closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. It was what took him. What takes all of them. Ethan swallowed hard. The hands, the faces, those were all. Imitations, Caleb said. It uses what you loved most to drag you closer. Ethan felt sick. Then why didn't it imitate someone you loved? Caleb laughed softly. I don't love anyone. Ethan stared at him. It was the first honest thing he'd heard Caleb say. The tunnel opened into a wider chamber, smaller than the reservoir room, but drier. A strange, thick fog swirled near the ceiling. Ethan's flashlight flickered as he raised it. Old metal equipment littered the room. Rustic cabinets, broken gauges, shattered glass tubes. A decayed desk sat in one corner, with a faded, water-damaged folder.
Caleb walked to it.
This, he said, tapping the folder, is where your father left his notes. Ethan felt his heart plummet. My dad was down here taking notes? Caleb nodded. He came to me the night before he died. Told me he heard someone in the walls. Thought Lucas had snuck into the basement. He was wrong. Ethan stepped forward, hands trembling. What did he find? Caleb opened the folder. Inside were warped pages, scribbled handwriting, and smeared diagrams. He handed a page to Ethan. Ethan held it under the flashlight. His father's handwriting. Asterisk, the voice is calling again. Not Lucas. Something else. Something older. Asterisk. Ethan's breath hitched. He flipped to another page. Asterisk, Margaret can't know. It would break her. I need to close the tunnel before something reaches the children. Asterisk.
Children.
Plural. Lucas. And him. Ethan felt a cold wave crash through his body. He whispered, Dad tried to protect us. Caleb nodded slowly. He loved you. More than anything. Ethan stared at him. Then why did he come here alone? Why didn't he call for help? Why didn't he call you? A shadow crossed Caleb's face. He did call me. Ethan's heart paused. What? Caleb looked away. He begged me to help him seal the tunnel. To close the door. To stop the voices from reaching you and Lucas. Ethan frowned. So, why didn't you help him? Caleb's jaw clenched. His voice lowered. Because I heard the voice too. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Ethan's stomach twisted. You heard the same thing my dad heard? The same thing Lucas heard. Caleb nodded once. It doesn't call everyone, Ethan. It chooses. And I was chosen long before your family ever moved here. Ethan stepped back. What are you talking about? Caleb's breathing shifted. Slow, controlled, almost rehearsed. Do you remember the girl I told you about? The one who disappeared before Lucas. Ethan nodded hesitantly. Caleb pointed toward a dark opening in the stone wall. That's where she vanished. Ethan stiffened. What did you do? Caleb turned to him sharply. Nothing. Ethan didn't believe him. Caleb saw the distrust and laughed bitterly. You think I killed her? That I dragged her down here? He stepped closer. If I had, do you really think I'd still be alive? This place doesn't let murderers live long. Ethan's eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe you're innocent? I expect you to believe the truth, Caleb said quietly. That SHE called me down here, just like your brother called you. Caleb pointed deeper into the dark. You want to know where your father went? Where Lucas disappeared? Then follow me. Ethan shook his head.
No.
Not until Hale gets here. Not until... But Caleb suddenly looked behind Ethan and smiled. She's already here.
Etan spun.
Detective Hale staggered into the chamber. Soaked, panting, mud on her face, her flashlight shaking in her hand. She had blood on her arm. A cut along her leg.
Hale.
Ethan ran to her. Are you okay? She nodded, breathless. It caught me for a second. One of those things. But I'm fine. Ethan swallowed. How did you open the hatch?
I didn't, she said.
It opened by itself. Caleb smirked. Of course it did. It wants him. Hale raised her gun at Caleb immediately. Speak again, and I'll drop you right here. But Caleb didn't flinch. You think bullets work on something that's already chosen its next name for the wall? Ethan jerked toward him. What name? Caleb looked directly into Ethan's eyes. Yours. Hale stepped between them. Ethan, stay behind me. We're leaving. But Caleb shook his head slowly. There's no leaving anymore. The ground trembled. The air thickened. Something groaned deep within the stone. A long, ancient creaking like the earth itself was twisting. Hale grabbed Ethan's arm. We need to move.
Now.
But the tunnel behind them collapsed, stone crashing down, sealing the exit. Dust filled the air. Hale covered Ethan with her body. When the dust settled, the path they came from was buried.
Completely blocked.
Hale lifted her head. Oh God, oh God. Caleb stepped toward the deeper tunnel. A narrow passage leading into pitch-black darkness. As I said, he whispered, there's only one way forward. Ethan stared into the dark. Shapes moved inside it. Soft whispers drifted out. Ethan?
Come closer.
Help me. Lucas's voice again. Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. Hale gripped his shoulders.
Ethan.
That is not your brother. Don't listen. Don't look. Don't follow. Ethan trembled. But what if he really?
He isn't.
Hale's voice cracked. He can't be. Lucas is gone. Ethan wiped his face, shaking violently. But his voice sounds so real. Caleb stood at the mouth of the tunnel. He's waiting for you, Ethan. They both are. Ethan's breath caught. Both. Caleb nodded. Lucas. And your father. Ethan staggered backward. No, my dad drowned. Caleb stepped forward, eyes burning. Your father didn't drown. He came down here to stop all of this. And he failed. Ethan's heart shattered. Hale stepped in front of him. Caleb, you're done talking.
I'm arrested.
But Caleb moved faster than either of them expected. He grabbed Hale's wrist, twisted, and slammed her gun against the wall. The gun clattered across the floor. Hale cried out. Ethan lunged, shoving Caleb off her. Stop. Caleb didn't fight back. He just stepped away, rubbing his hand, watching Ethan carefully. Good, he said softly. You're almost ready. Ethan's chest heaved. Ready for what? Caleb pointed to the pitch-black tunnel behind him. For the truth. The whispers grew louder, rising like a tide. Ethan, come down. Help. Hale grabbed Ethan's arm desperately. Don't you dare, she whispered. Don't go in there. Don't give it what it wants. Ethan looked between Hale, shaking, injured, terrified, and Caleb, calm, steady, waiting. And then,
the voice changed.
It wasn't Lucas anymore. It wasn't a child. It was deeper, older, painful. Ethan. A voice he hadn't heard in 10 years. Ethan froze. His heart stopped. Dad. Hale's breath caught. No. Ethan, listen to me. But Ethan was no longer listening. Tears streamed down his face. Dad. The voice came again. Broken.
Desperate.
Ethan, help me, please. Something in Ethan snapped clean in half. He stepped toward the tunnel. Dad. I'm coming.
Hale screaming. No.
But Ethan ignored her. He stepped into the darkness. And everything beyond swallowed him whole. Darkness swallowed Ethan like a living thing. The air inside the deeper tunnel was warm, damp, and thick, like the breath of some giant creature. Behind him, Hale screamed his name. Ethan, come back. Don't go. Her voice cut off. Or maybe the tunnel simply muffled it. Caleb followed close behind Ethan, footsteps calm and steady. You hear him, don't you? Caleb whispered. His voice echoed strangely, too loud for such a narrow space. Ethan's throat tightened. It's my dad, he whispered. I know his voice. I remember how it sounds. Caleb nodded approvingly. It's calling you because it needs you. Ethan swallowed hard. What does it want from me? Caleb didn't answer. He walked past Ethan, deeper into the tunnel. The whispering voices slid along the stone walls. Ethan? It's cold, come down. Hurry. Lucas's voice. His father's voice. Both calling him. Both impossible. Ethan's flashlight flickered again. He banged it with his palm. It steadied, but the beam was weak. Shadows crawled along the walls. Caleb's silhouette kept moving farther ahead. Caleb, Ethan said shakily, slow down. Caleb didn't. Instead, The tunnel suddenly opened into a vast cavern. Ethan stepped out and froze. This cavern was enormous, far larger than any chamber above. The ceiling arced high overhead and glistened with wet stone. Shallow water pooled across the floor. In the center of the cavern stood a massive, circular steel door, rusted but solid, like a vault. Ethan's breath caught. "What is that?" Caleb smiled faintly. "The real entrance." "Entrance to what?" Caleb didn't turn around. "To where your father went. To where Lucas went. To where I went." Ethan's stomach twisted. Caleb approached the massive door. It had no handle, only a circular indentation in the center, like something belonged there. Caleb touched the center gently. "It only opens for one thing," he whispered. Ethan frowned. "What thing?" Caleb turned to him slowly, eyes shining with a strange, fevered certainty. "Blood." The cavern went silent. Ethan stepped back.
No.
"No, this is insane." Hale was right. "You're sick." Caleb raised his hands calmly. "I'm not asking for your blood." He pointed to the walls. "To open it, you need blood from someone who has already been taken." Ethan blinked. "What does that mean?" Caleb smiled sadly. "Someone who already belongs to the voice." The whisper then came again, right behind Ethan's ear, so close he felt breath on his skin. "Ethan?" He spun, flashlight trembling, but saw no one. Caleb approached him slowly. "Your father was the first to open this door in years. He used his own blood." He walked inside. Ethan's heart pounded. What did he find? Caleb's expression shifted. For the first time, he looked scared. Something worse than death. Ethan grabbed him by the shirt. "Where is my father?" Caleb didn't resist. He whispered, "Behind that door." Ethan's pulse exploded. He backed away, shaking violently. "This is crazy. This is." But then, something splashed behind him.
Soft. Subtle.
Ethan raised his flashlight toward the sound. Something was moving through the shallow water.
Slowly.
One step at a time. A figure. Small. Child-sized. Ethan's heart stopped. "Lucas?" The shape stepped closer. Ethan's breath caught. A boy with dripping blonde hair. Pale skin. Bare feet. The same blue hoodie Lucas wore the day he disappeared. Ethan whispered, broken. "Lucas, oh my God." But something was wrong. Very wrong. The boy's head tilted at an unnatural angle. His eyes were cloudy, unfocused. His lips moved, but his face barely did. Ethan fell to his knees. "Lucas, I'm so sorry. I should have never left you." Hale's voice suddenly echoed from the tunnel behind them. "Ethan, don't touch him." Ethan wheeled around. Hale stumbled out of the tunnel, limping, wounded, gasping, blood running down her leg. Her gun shook in her hands. Caleb stepped in her way. "You shouldn't be here." Hale aimed her gun straight at him. "I told you. I'm not leaving him." Ethan turned back to Lucas. But the boy had moved, right in front of him, face inches from his. The eyes were wrong. Too dead. Too empty. Lucas whispered again. "Help me." But the voice, it wasn't Lucas's voice at all anymore. It was deeper, older.
Wrong.
Ethan froze. That wasn't Lucas. That wasn't his brother. Hale's voice cracked. "Ethan, back away." Slowly. But the boy's head twitched, and the jaw snapped open wider than a child's jaw should. A low, monstrous groan came from its throat.
Hale Fired.
The bullet tore through the figure, and it burst apart like smoke. Ethan screamed and scrambled back. Hale ran to him, grabbing his shoulders. "Ethan, that wasn't your brother. Do you understand? That thing wasn't Lucas." Ethan choked on a sob. But his voice, his face. "I know," Hale whispered. "And that's why it's so dangerous." Caleb watched them quietly. Ethan glared at him through tears. "What is down here? What does it want?" Caleb exhaled slowly. "Your family." Ethan's stomach flipped.
No.
"Yes," Caleb said quietly. "You're not the first Carter called." Ethan's voice shook. You said my father opened the door." Caleb nodded. He did. And what happened? Caleb's expression hardened. He went inside, and something came back out.
Hale Stiffenet.
What are you talking about? Caleb pointed toward the far corner of the cavern, the darkest part. Ethan turned. A shadow moved there.
Tall.
Slow, dragging its feet through the water. The flashlight beam shook in Ethan's hand. The shape stepped forward.
A man. Dripping wet.
Skin pale, clothes torn, head hanging forward. Ethan's breath stopped completely. No, he whispered. No, it can't be. The man lifted his head. Water streamed down a familiar face. Thomas Carter, Ethan's father. Ethan collapsed. Dad. Hale froze in horror. Caleb whispered. I told you, Ethan. He walked into the door. Ethan sobbed. Dad, please talk to me. Thomas Carter's mouth opened slowly, water pouring out of it. And a deep, guttural voice whispered. Ethan?
Hale grabbedetan.
Don't go near him. Ethan, that's not your father. But Ethan didn't hear anything anymore. He staggered toward the man. And the man took one step closer. One step out of the darkness. One step away from being human. Ethan froze as his father's figure stepped fully out of the darkness. The cavern swallowed all other light. His flashlight flickered, revealing pale, sopping clothes clinging to his father's frame. The air smelled damp, metallic, and wrong. Dad. Ethan's voice cracked. The figure tilted his head unnaturally, water dripping from every strand of hair. Then he spoke, his voice deeper, alien, layered with something Ethan didn't recognize. Ethan? Hale grabbed Ethan's arm. Don't go near him. That isn't your father. But Ethan's feet moved on their own. No. Dad, it's you, you're alive. Caleb stepped closer from the shadows. Stop.
Ethan.
It's not him. That thing, it's been using his voice for weeks. Months. It's feeding off your belief. Ethan faltered, eyes searching every line of his father's face. He wanted to see his dad's warmth, his familiar eyes, but all he saw was emptiness. Hollow eyes glimmering in the faint light. The figure raised a hand. Slowly, deliberately. Ethan, join me? Ethan staggered backward. The voice sounded like his father, but the tone, the cadence was wrong.
Haunting.
Manipulative. Hale's gun shook in her hand. Ethan, listen to me. It can't take both of you. Not again. Ethan's chest heaved. Lucas, is he? Caleb's face darkened. Your brother's essence is trapped deeper. If you go any further without understanding, you could lose yourself too. Ethan felt a cold sweat. How do I stop it? Caleb's eyes hardened. You don't. You survive it. The floor of the cavern trembled. Small ripples spread across the shallow water pools. The steel vault door at the far side groaned, as if something inside was pressing against it. Ethan's flashlight flickered violently. For a split second, the reflection in the water multiplied. The pale figure of his father, Lucas, and others. Faces twisted in silent screams, eyes staring through him. Hale shouted, Ethan, we need to move.
Now.
But Ethan couldn't. His gaze was locked on the figure. His heart begged for his father. His mind screamed that this was a trap. He felt paralyzed between love and horror. The figure stepped closer again. Water splashed across the cavern floor, each step unnaturally heavy. Its face seemed to warp, features flickering like shadows on a disturbed pond. Caleb moved to stand beside Ethan. It doesn't just want you. It wants to use your memory, your connection, to draw everyone else down. Your father, your brother, even your friends if they come too close. Ethan swallowed. His mind raced. So, it's feeding off us? Caleb nodded.
Yes.
Every emotion, every memory, every bit of hope you have, it consumes. The water around the figure roiled violently. The alien voice, his father's voice layered with something darker, resonated through the cavern. Ethan, your father, your brother, all of them, they're mine. Hale fired her gun again. The shot rang, echoing like thunder. But the figure only paused, as if amused. Caleb whispered, bullets can't kill it. Only the link, the memory, the bloodline it recognizes. Ethan's pulse raced. What do you mean? Caleb took a deep breath. This voice, this presence that's been hunting your family for generations. Each Carter it touches, it learns,
Adapts.
it remembers. It can imitate, it can manipulate, but it cannot create new connections without the original source. That's why it uses you. That's why it's been waiting for you.
Hale giritte tertit.
Then what do? Caleb's eyes flicked toward the vault door. We need to go deeper. Face it on its terms. If we don't, it'll destroy everything it can touch. Ethan's stomach sank. Go deeper? That thing is my father. That thing is Lucas. Caleb shook his head.
No.
Those are just shells. Illusions. You need to stop thinking with your heart and start thinking with your mind. The cavern rumbled again. The water churned as if alive. Shadows on the walls twisted into shapes that resembled people, friends, strangers, family, all calling Ethan, beckoning him. Ethan shivered. I can't leave them. Hale grabbed his shoulders firmly. You have to. Trust me, or you're lost. The figure lifted its hand, pointing toward Ethan. Join us, be whole, let go. Ethan felt his knees weaken. Every instinct screamed to run, but another part, a raw, aching desire, wanted to obey. Caleb moved closer. Ethan, focus on what's real. Hear my voice, not theirs. The water splashed violently. Shapes seemed to reach out from the reflection, clawing toward Ethan. He felt as if he were being pulled forward. Then Caleb whispered, low and urgent, close your eyes, Ethan. Remember who you are. Remember what's real. Ethan shut his eyes tightly. The voices screamed. The water surged. He felt invisible hands dragging at him, whispering promises he wanted to believe. Safety, love, reunion. And then a single, clear thought pierced through. Father is gone. Lucas is gone. Only I am here. Ethan opened his eyes. The pale figure paused. For a moment, the illusion flickered. Hale grabbed his arm.
Now.
Run. The cavern shuddered violently. Rocks fell from the ceiling. Water surged higher. The steel door began to shudder. Caleb yelled, Go to the door. Don't stop until you reach it. Ethan stumbled forward, Hale keeping pace. The reflection of the figure in the water splintered, faces breaking apart, screaming silently as the connection weakened. As they ran, Ethan could hear Caleb shouting behind them. It's losing strength. Keep moving. Focus on what's real. The water grew chest-high. Ethan's muscles burned. He glanced back once, his father's face, Lucas's face, twisted and warped, reaching toward him. Ethan, join us. And then, a sudden, violent pull nearly knocked him off his feet. Something grabbed him. Not the figure, but the water itself, alive with cold, writhing energy. Hale yanked him free, with all her strength. Don't let it take you. They dove through the water, Caleb's words echoing in their ears. Almost there. Just a few more steps. Finally, they reached the massive steel vault door. Caleb placed his hand on the circular indentation. Step back, Ethan. This is where it ends, or begins anew. Ethan looked back into the cavern. Shadows clawed at the edges, whispers screaming. Faces of his family twisted, crying, pleading, calling. Caleb's hand pressed firmly on the center of the door. A faint humming began. The water shivered. The illusion, the presence, screamed in a voice that was both his father and Lucas and something monstrous all at once. Ethan, you cannot leave, you cannot escape. We are yours. Ethan's vision blurred with tears, adrenaline, and fear. He gritted his teeth. Asterisk, I am not theirs. I am myself. Asterisk. Caleb's voice cut through.
Now, Ethan.
Step through.
He did.
The vault door swung open slowly, revealing a narrow passage leading further down into darkness. The sound of the water receding behind them echoed like a sigh of relief, or a death cry. Hale clutched Ethan's arm. Keep moving. Whatever's behind this door, we face it together. Caleb nodded grimly. Yes, together. But remember, Once you step through, there is no turning back. Ethan's heart pounded. He glanced one last time at the cavern, at the twisted, screaming faces of the illusions. And then, with a deep breath, he stepped forward into the unknown. The darkness closed behind them. The narrow passage yawned before them, dark and wet. The air smelled of rust, stone, and something older, something alive beneath the surface. Ethan's pulse throbbed in his temples. Every step he took felt like wading through memory itself. Shadows flickered along the walls, reflections of shapes he didn't recognize, or perhaps refused to. The narrow passage yawned before them, dark and wet. The air smelled of rust, stone, and something older, something alive beneath the surface. Ethan's pulse throbbed in his temples. Every step he took felt like wading through memory itself. Shadows flickered along the walls, reflections of shapes he didn't recognize, or perhaps refused to. Hale kept pace beside him, eyes darting constantly, gun ready. Caleb led the way, his flashlight a steady, piercing beam through the suffocating darkness. Finally, the passage opened into a new chamber, smaller than the cavern, yet somehow worse. The walls were covered in ancient symbols etched deep into the stone. Some shimmered faintly, glowing as if powered by a presence beyond comprehension. Ethan stared. What is this place? Caleb exhaled slowly. This is where the Carter line has intersected with the voice for generations. Where it first claimed one of your ancestors.
Halefronet.
Generations? You mean this thing has been hunting their family for decades? Caleb nodded gravely. More than that, it's been learning from them.
Adapting.
Using our connections, our bloodlines, our memories against us. Every Carter who came here left a mark, whether they survived or not. Ethan shuddered. So, that's why it knew my father, my brother, why it used their faces? Yes. Caleb's voice was low. It doesn't care about them as they are. It only cares about what it can use to reach you. The voice cannot create, only imitate. That's why it took your father and tried to take Lucas. And now it's after you. Ethan swallowed hard. But my dad, Lucas, are they? Caleb hesitated, eyes dark. Your father, he walked through the vault first. It claimed him, but not fully. He exists in a state between reality and what the voice can manipulate. Lucas, the same. Part of him is trapped inside the labyrinth deeper in the tunnels. Hale's voice trembled. So, they're not really gone? Not completely. Caleb nodded. But the longer they remain, the more they become extensions of the voice. You risk losing them entirely if you're not careful. Ethan felt a hollow ache in his chest. So, all this time, I've been chasing shadows. Caleb shook his head.
No.
You've been chasing truth. And now, you finally stand at the core of it. He gestured toward a massive, stone-covered doorway at the far end of the chamber. Symbols glowed faintly along its surface. That door is where it resides. The source of the voice. The thing that imitates your father, your brother, everyone. Ethan's throat tightened. And we can stop it there? Caleb's expression hardened. We can try. But understand this. The voice is not just one entity. It's a convergence of all the minds it's consumed over the years. Every emotion, every memory, every fragment of a Carter it has touched, it's all inside, and it's waiting for you. If it catches you, it doesn't just consume you, it replaces you. Hale's grip on Ethan's arm tightened. Then we don't have a choice. We face it. We end it. Or we die trying. The chamber seemed to respond to her words. A low vibration shook the walls. Symbols pulsed brighter, and a faint whispering filled the air, speaking in a chorus of voices, some familiar, some terrifyingly alien. Ethan shivered. The whispers sounded like his father, his brother, even Lucas's voice calling for help, or warning him to turn back. Caleb took a step forward. Listen closely. The voice thrives on doubt, fear, and love. It feeds on the connection between you and those it imitates. That's why it never touched you fully before. It needed you to come willingly, or to struggle enough to give it strength. Ethan swallowed, trembling. So, if I resist, I can weaken it. Yes. Caleb's eyes glinted. But it will try to manipulate everything you care about. Your memories, your guilt, your regrets. It will use them as weapons. You must focus on what's real. What you know is real. Nothing else. Hale's voice was firm. And we're with you. Whatever happens, we face it together. Ethan nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. He thought of Lucas's blue hoodie, the last memory of his brother before he vanished. He thought of his father's laugh, the warmth of it, the moments of safety he once felt. He could feel them slipping, consumed by the illusions and the voices' manipulations, but he held on. Caleb moved closer to the stone doorway. He traced the symbols with his hand. This is the core. Once you enter, the voice will try everything it can. Your father, your brother, illusions, whispers, promises, everything. Do not believe any of it. Only your memory of what is real will protect you. Ethan nodded again, though his knees shook. Hale took a deep breath beside him, her hand brushing his arm in reassurance. Caleb glanced back at them. There's one more thing. The voice cannot create new life. It can only imitate. If you offer a piece of yourself, your courage, your love, your memory, it will weaken it. But you must survive the ordeal. If you fail, it will consume everything. Ethan's mind reeled. A piece of myself, but how? What does that mean? Caleb's lips curled faintly. It means that your strength, your connection to what is real, is the only weapon you have. When it presents illusions, when it shows your father, your brother, do not reach for them. Hold on to what you know is true, no matter how much it hurts. That is how you break it. Hale tightened her grip on her gun. Then there's no time. We go now. Together, they approached the massive stone doorway. The symbols glowed brighter with every step. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices that clawed at their minds. Ethan felt tears sting his eyes, but he refused to succumb. As they stepped closer, the doorway pulsed once. Then a low, guttural voice boomed from within. Ethan, your family, your blood, come to me, be with us. Ethan faltered, his heart pounding in his chest. The voices sounded so real. His father, Lucas, every loved one he had ever lost. He wanted to reach out. He wanted to believe. But Caleb's voice cut through the storm. Remember, only what is real. Do not reach for the illusions. Ethan clenched his fists. He focused on the memory of the first time he and Lucas had built a sandcastle together on the beach, the warmth of his father's hand on his shoulder when he graduated, the sound of Hale's voice calling him back to reality. He held on to that, and the whispers faltered, struggling to hold their form. The doorway trembled. Shadows twisted within it, forming grotesque imitations of his family. The pale, distorted figures of his father, and Lucas reached toward him, with eyes empty of life. Hale raised her gun, aiming at the nearest illusion. Do not let it take you. Ethan took a deep breath, summoning all his courage. This is real. This is real. This is real. The figures shrieked in protest, their voices merging into a single, monstrous wail. The symbols on the doorway flared brightly, and a gust of wind swept through the chamber, pushing the illusions back. Caleb stepped forward.
Now, Ethan.
Enter the core. Face it directly. Ethan's heart hammered. With Hale and Caleb by his side, he stepped through the doorway. Darkness swallowed him, but this time, he did not panic. He clung to the memories of what was real, what mattered, what was worth fighting for. The voice screamed. It twisted, contorted, and pulsed with fury. Shadows lunged, voices called, promises dangled. But Ethan stood firm. A soft, cold hand brushed his shoulder. He flinched, but it was Hale, holding on, grounding him in reality. Then a whisper, barely audible, reached him from within the darkness. Ethan, your courage, your blood, your memory, they cannot take you. Ethan felt a flicker of hope. He focused harder, pushing the shadows away, letting his memories anchor him. The voice roared, a final, desperate wail. And then silence. The darkness receded. Shadows collapsed. The chamber fell still. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping, exhausted but alive. Hale knelt beside him, her hand brushing his hair from his face. Caleb stood a few steps away, eyes weary but resolute. "It's done for now," Caleb said softly. "You survived it. You held on to what was real. That's what matters." Ethan looked around. The chamber was quiet.
No whispers. No shadows.
Only the glow of the ancient symbols fading into the stone. He closed his eyes, letting the silence wash over him. For the first time in what felt like eternity, he felt free. The chamber beyond the stone doorway was unlike anything Ethan had imagined. It was vast, impossibly deep, and alive in a way that made the skin crawl. The air was thick, heavy with a metallic tang that set his teeth on edge. Shadows moved independently of light, slithering across the walls and floor like living ink. Hale's flashlight cut through the darkness, illuminating jagged rock formations that seemed to pulse in time with Ethan's heartbeat. Caleb was ahead, moving with careful purpose, his eyes scanning every surface. "This is it," Caleb said, voice low. "The heart of the labyrinth. The source of the voice. Whatever we do here, we do together, but we will pay a price." Ethan swallowed hard. A price? Caleb didn't answer immediately. He ran a hand along the cold, wet wall. "Every Carter who's faced it has lost something. Courage, innocence, sometimes themselves. This thing doesn't just kill. It consumes in every sense. And to destroy it, someone must anchor it, contain it, even if only temporarily. That person may never leave alive." Hale stepped closer, voice steady despite the tremor Ethan heard in it. "Then we're ready. Whatever it takes, we face it. Together." The shadows thickened as they moved deeper. The whispers began again, soft at first, then growing louder. They called in voices familiar to Ethan, his father, Lucas, voices from his childhood, voices promising safety, warmth, reunion. Ethan's hands trembled. He forced himself to focus on reality. Hale's steady presence, Caleb's firm steps, the cold stone under his fingers. He repeated the mantra Caleb had given him. "Only what is real. Only what is real." They reached a circular chamber at the labyrinth's core. The walls were covered in carvings, older than any Ethan had seen before. Symbols, faces, shapes that moved when looked at directly, forming a living tapestry of memory and fear. At the center was a pit, dark and endless, emitting a low, guttural hum that seemed to resonate in their bones. Caleb stepped closer to the edge of the pit. "The voice is in there. This is where it manifests most strongly. To stop it, we need a focus. One of us must go to the center, offer a part of themselves to anchor it, while the others destroy its influence." Ethan's heart raced. "You mean one of us dies?" "Yes," Caleb said quietly. "Or at least that's the risk. Whoever goes and may not return fully, if at all." Hale placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "I don't care about me. I'll do it. You're the only one who can survive this fully, because it's drawn to the Carters. You're the key. I'll anchor it. You and Caleb finish it." Ethan's throat tightened.
No.
"I can't let you." "I choose," Hale interrupted, her voice firm. "I've faced worse than this. You'll survive if I go in. Don't argue." Caleb nodded reluctantly. "It will be a trap. The voice will try to break you while she's inside. But if she succeeds, it will give you the chance to end it." Hale turned to Ethan. "You remember the mantra. Only what is real. I'll keep us tethered." Ethan swallowed, nodding. "Be safe, please." Hale gave a faint, grim smile. "I'll be fine. Just don't lose yourself." With that, Hale stepped forward, moving toward the pit. Shadows reached for her immediately, hands of darkness, whispers that begged, pleaded, and threatened all at once. She didn't falter. She stepped into the void. Ethan and Caleb watched as she disappeared from sight. The whispers intensified, echoing around the chamber, pressing against their minds. Ethan could hear it clearly now. The voice, combining every tone it had used before, every distortion of his father, Lucas, and countless other voices. Ethan, come to us, join your father, join your brother, it's easier this way. Ethan shook his head violently.
No.
Not real. Not real. Not real. Caleb placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder. Focus. It's trying to pull you in with fear and love. Ignore it. Remember the memories that are yours and yours alone. Ethan did his best to concentrate on the smallest things, the feel of sand between his fingers on the beach where he and Lucas played, the smell of his father's workshop, Hale's steady presence beside him. Slowly, the chaos in his mind began to recede, the whispers weakening. From the pit, a scream erupted. Hale's voice, distorted, yet resolute. She was fighting, anchoring herself as Caleb had explained. Shadows twisted violently, clawing out of the pit, but she remained, a single figure against a tide of darkness. Caleb turned to Ethan.
Now.
While she's holding it, we disrupt it. Hit the core. Use the symbols. Shatter its connection. Ethan glanced around the chamber. He noticed faint cracks along the walls, lines running through the carvings like veins. Following Caleb's instructions, he and Caleb began striking the walls in precise sequences, memorized symbols, patterns etched by generations of carters. Every strike sent ripples of energy through the chamber. The shadows shrieked, clawing at the edges of the room, forming twisted faces of those it had consumed over the years. Yet Hale's figure remained steady in the pit, a beacon of defiance. The hum from the pit grew louder, almost unbearable, and Ethan felt as though the chamber itself was alive, resisting their efforts. Sweat ran down his face, his hands ached, and the whispers now threatened to drive him mad. Ethan, why do you resist? You will join us, we are all you need. Ethan's fingers trembled over the last set of symbols. Only what is real. Only what is real. He gritted his teeth and struck with all his strength. The chamber vibrated violently. Shadows screeched and retreated, unable to withstand the combined force of reality and memory. Suddenly, a massive wave of energy shot from the pit. Ethan was thrown backward, hitting the wall hard. He tasted blood, felt the cold stone beneath him, and saw stars of pain. But the voice was weakening. Hale's anchor, combined with their efforts, was forcing it into retreat. The distorted echoes of his father and Lucas began to crumble, their faces dissolving into nothingness. Caleb shouted over the chaos. Keep going. You're breaking it. Ethan pushed himself to his feet. Every strike, every chant, every memory he held on to push the darkness back. And then, the final, ear-splitting scream. Hale's voice, unwavering, declaring, "This ends now." A blinding light burst from the pit, engulfing the chamber. Shadows twisted violently one last time before collapsing entirely. The hum ceased. Silence descended, almost unbearable after the chaos. Ethan stumbled forward, heart pounding. The pit was empty. Hale was gone. Caleb placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder, voice heavy with grief and relief. She did it. She anchored it. She saved us all, but she didn't come back. Ethan sank to his knees, staring into the pit. He wanted to scream, to curse, to fall apart, but he knew what Hale had done was necessary. She had sacrificed herself to save him, to save everyone. Caleb knelt beside him, placing a firm hand on his back. The cost was hers, but the world is safer. You need to survive, Ethan. Carry this forward. Ethan's eyes burned with tears. I can't believe she... Caleb nodded silently. I know. But remember what she told you. Hold on to what's real. That's the only way forward. The chamber was silent now, empty, but the weight of sacrifice hung heavily in the air. Ethan stood slowly, swallowing his grief. The voice had been defeated for now, but the scars it left were deep. He clenched his fists. I won't forget. I'll make sure she didn't die in vain. Caleb placed a hand on his shoulder. We rebuild. We survive. And maybe one day we understand everything that happened here. For now, we leave this place. Hale's sacrifice ensured we could. Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. With Caleb guiding him, he turned toward the exit. The labyrinth had claimed much, but it had not claimed him. And for the first time in what felt like forever, he felt a fragile, fleeting hope. The labyrinth was silent, yet it felt heavier than ever. Every step Ethan took echoed through the cavernous tunnels like a ghost of the chaos they had just survived. Dust and debris littered the floor, remnants of the violent collapse at the core. Shadows clung to the walls, but this time, they were weak and flickering, lacking the life and malice they had shown before. Caleb moved ahead, his flashlight cutting through the gloom. "We need to move quickly," he said. "The collapse may have weakened some of the structure. If we linger, it could trap us down here for good." Ethan nodded, his body sore, his lungs burning from the exertion. Hale's sacrifice weighed on him like a stone. Every memory of her courage, the steady hand that anchored the voice, the unwavering determination, pushed him forward. He couldn't stop now, not after what she had done. As they retraced their path through the twisting tunnels, Ethan noticed subtle changes. The shadows were fewer, the whispers nearly gone, but the carvings along the walls seemed to watch them, faintly glowing even in their weakened state. Symbols that had once writhed in torment now shimmered with something almost like acknowledgement. "Do you think it's truly over?" Ethan asked quietly, glancing at Caleb. Caleb shook his head. "It's dormant. We've scattered its power, but these things, they don't simply die. The voice is part of the labyrinth now. It will linger, and it will try again. That's why we need to leave, while we still can. Learn from this. Prepare for the future." Ethan's chest tightened. He knew Caleb was right. The labyrinth had changed him. Every memory, every fear, every shadow had left a mark. But he also knew he carried something Hale had helped him preserve: clarity, focus, and the courage to face the impossible. They approached the chamber where the previous encounters had tested him most. The ceiling had partially collapsed, leaving a jagged opening through which light from the surface filtered down. The sight was almost blinding after the darkness below. Ethan squinted, taking in the sunlight that promised life outside the labyrinth. Caleb stopped. "From here, the path is unstable, but it's the quickest exit. Watch your step." Ethan followed carefully, avoiding fallen rocks and precarious ledges. The air grew fresher, cooler, as they ascended. He felt as if the weight of the labyrinth, the voices, the shadows, the immense pressure of the past, was lifting slightly with every step toward the light. Suddenly, a faint whisper reached his ears, soft and almost mournful. "Ethan?" He froze. The sound was unmistakable, but it was different. Gentle, distant, almost sorrowful. Caleb noticed his pause. "Don't listen. It's trying to pull you back. Keep moving." Ethan shook his head and forced his legs to keep moving, though his heart pounded. He thought of Hale again. Her sacrifice had anchored the voice, but perhaps it had left echoes, residual traces trying to lure him into doubt. He clung to reality, repeating the mantra, "Only what is real." The tunnel widened into a cavern that had been partially destroyed during the collapse. The air was thick with dust, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed around them. At the far end, sunlight filtered through cracks, a promise of freedom. Ethan stepped forward cautiously. Then, a shadow detached itself from the wall. It moved slowly, impossibly fluid, and his blood ran cold. "Not again," Ethan whispered. Caleb stepped beside him. "Focus on reality. Ignore it." The shadow coalesced into a familiar shape, Lucas. But not quite. There was something off. His eyes were too dark, his movements too fluid. "Lucas." Ethan's voice cracked. "It's me, it's real." The shadow lunged, and Ethan recoiled. Caleb fired a warning shot, but the figure dissipated like mist. "It's just an echo," Caleb said firmly. "It's left over from the labyrinth. Keep moving. Don't let it fool you." Ethan clenched his fists, forcing himself to breathe steadily. He focused on his memories, real, tangible, irreplaceable moments. Lucas's laughter, not the distorted mimicry. Hale's steady hand, not the voice's lure. His father's workshop, the smell of sawdust, the feel of wood under his fingers. These were his anchors. The shadow flickered once more and vanished completely. The air felt lighter, and Ethan knew they were close to escaping. They reached the final passage, a narrow chute leading upward toward the surface. Rocks crumbled beneath their feet, and the incline was steep. Caleb went first, helping Ethan over the jagged edges. The sunlight grew stronger with each step. Finally, Ethan emerged into the open air, blinking against the brightness. The labyrinth was behind him, hidden beneath the forest floor, silent for now. Birds called.
He thought of Hale again.
Her sacrifice had anchored the voice, but perhaps it had left echoes, residual traces trying to lure him into doubt. He clung to reality, repeating the mantra, "Only what is real." The tunnel widened into a cavern that had been partially destroyed during the collapse. The air was thick with dust, and the faint sound of dripping water echoed around them. At the far end, sunlight filtered through cracks, a promise of freedom. Ethan stepped forward cautiously. Then, a shadow detached itself from the wall. It moved slowly, impossibly fluid, and his blood ran cold. "Not again," Ethan whispered. Caleb stepped beside him. "Focus on reality. Ignore it." The shadow coalesced into a familiar shape, Lucas. But not quite. There was something off. His eyes were too dark, his movements too fluid. "Lucas." Ethan's voice cracked. "It's me, it's real." The shadow lunged, and Ethan recoiled. Caleb fired a warning shot, but the figure dissipated like mist. "It's just an echo," Caleb said firmly. "It's left over from the labyrinth. Keep moving. Don't let it fool you." Ethan clenched his fists, forcing himself to breathe steadily. He focused on his memories, real, tangible, irreplaceable moments. Lucas's laughter, not the distorted mimicry. Hale's steady hand, not the voice's lure. His father's workshop, the smell of sawdust, the feel of wood under his fingers. These were his anchors. The shadow flickered once more and vanished completely. The air felt lighter, and Ethan knew they were close to escaping. They reached the final passage, a narrow chute leading upward toward the surface. Rocks crumbled beneath their feet, and the incline was steep. Caleb went first, helping Ethan over the jagged edges. The sunlight grew stronger with each step. Finally, Ethan emerged into the open air, blinking against the brightness. The labyrinth was behind him, hidden beneath the forest floor, silent for now. Birds called, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of pine and earth. He inhaled deeply, the first truly clean breath he had taken in weeks. Caleb stepped out behind him, exhaustion written on his face. "We made it." Ethan looked around, expecting Hale to be beside him, but she wasn't. A lump formed in his throat. He fell to his knees, overwhelmed by grief and relief. She saved us," Ethan whispered. "And she's gone." Caleb knelt beside him. "Her sacrifice will never be forgotten. You carry her courage forward, Ethan. That's how she lives on." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sunlight filter through the trees, the world outside continuing as if nothing had happened. But Ethan knew better. The labyrinth had changed him forever. As they began to move toward the edge of the forest, Ethan noticed something glinting near the tunnel's entrance, a small, carved stone, covered in the same symbols from the labyrinth. He picked it up, feeling the weight of it in his hand. Caleb noticed and frowned. "Be careful with that. The symbols are remnants of the labyrinth's power. They could be dangerous if left unchecked." Ethan nodded. "I know, but maybe they could help us understand. Learn. Prepare." Caleb's expression softened. "Perhaps. But for now, let's leave it. We've earned a moment of peace. The labyrinth will wait, but it's not going anywhere, and neither are the consequences of what happened." As they walked away from the forest, Ethan felt a strange mixture of sorrow and determination. Hale was gone, sacrificed for their survival, but her courage had given him a chance to continue. The labyrinth had been defeated, for now, but he knew the world was filled with shadows yet unseen, dangers yet faced. And he was ready to meet them. The forest was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the labyrinth. Sunlight spilled through the trees, warm and unrelenting, bathing Ethan and Caleb in its golden glow. Birds sang overhead, and the wind rustled the leaves, carrying a faint, clean scent of earth and pine. Ethan walked slowly, the carved stone still in his hand. He traced the symbols lightly with his fingertips, remembering the power, the danger, and the courage that had carried him through. He knew he could not destroy it, not entirely.
Not yet.
But he could study it, understand it, and perhaps prevent it from ever rising again. Caleb walked beside him in silence. He, too, bore the marks of the labyrinth, not just physical bruises, but the unseen scars of terror and sacrifice. Both men were changed. They had faced an ancient darkness and survived, but they had lost something irreplaceable along the way. "You okay?" Caleb asked finally, breaking the quiet. Ethan swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the forest floor. I think so. But it doesn't feel over. Hale, she saved us, but part of me keeps expecting something. That the labyrinth isn't done yet. Caleb nodded. You're right. The labyrinth may be dormant, but its echoes remain. That voice, the shadows, they can never truly be erased. We've bought time, and that's all we can do. But we need to use it wisely. They reached the edge of the forest, where a dirt road stretched into the distance. Beyond it lay civilization, the familiar world that seemed almost unreal after the horrors below. Ethan paused, inhaling deeply. He wanted to run, to forget, to bury the memories, but he knew he couldn't. Not after what had happened, not after Hale's sacrifice. Do you think she knew, Ethan began, his voice trembling, that she wouldn't come back? Caleb's gaze fell to the ground. I think she did. That's what made her brave. That's what made her extraordinary. She chose to face it because she believed in you, in all of us. That kind of courage, it doesn't fade, Ethan. It becomes part of you. Ethan nodded slowly, letting the words sink in. He clenched the carved stone in his hand once more, feeling a strange warmth emanating from it, a reminder of the labyrinth, its power, and the price that had been paid. Rebuilding and remembering. The days that followed were quiet but intense. Ethan returned to his home, the town, and the world above, but nothing felt the same. The sunlight, the sounds of life, the mundane routines, all of it seemed tinged with fragility. He found himself revisiting the beach house, the one he had once sold, without fully realizing its significance. Standing on the sand, staring at the waves, memories of his family, of Lucas, of his father's laughter, came flooding back. The labyrinth had taken many things, but it could not erase the truth of his life. Ethan began documenting everything: the labyrinth, the symbols, Hale's sacrifice, the voice, the shadows. He wrote down each detail, each memory, every sensation, every echo of fear. The carved stone remained on his desk, a constant reminder that darkness never truly disappeared, but knowledge and vigilance could hold it at bay. Caleb became a frequent visitor. They trained together, studied together, and prepared for the possibility that the labyrinth's power could rise again. They both understood that they had been changed irrevocably, but they also knew that their experience gave them a responsibility to understand, to protect, and to honor the courage that had saved them. The lingering shadows. Even in moments of calm, Ethan felt the labyrinth's presence. Sometimes at night, when the wind whispered through the trees, he heard faint echoes of the voice calling his name. Shadows would flicker at the corner of his vision, vanishing when he turned to look. He learned not to fear them. Instead, he accepted that some darkness could never be fully destroyed. It could only be faced, resisted, and remembered. Hale's courage became his anchor. Every time the shadows tried to lure him, he would repeat her words. Only what is real. One evening, months after their escape, Ethan returned to the edge of the forest. The carved stone was in his pocket. He placed it carefully at the base of a tree, partly buried in the soil, as if offering a quiet memorial. It's here, he whispered, so we remember. So we never forget what we faced and what was lost. The wind stirred the leaves, and for a moment, he thought he heard Hale's faint voice, not in malice, but in reassurance. "I'm with you, Ethan. Always." He smiled, a bittersweet ache in his chest, and stood tall. The labyrinth was behind him, yet its lessons, its warnings, and its memories would travel with him forever. The future unknown. Though the labyrinth had been conquered, the world remained full of unseen threats. Ancient forces, dark whispers, and hidden shadows still existed beyond human comprehension. Ethan and Caleb understood that their journey was far from over. But they also knew something vital. Courage, sacrifice, and reality were stronger than the shadows that sought to destroy them. Hale's sacrifice had proven that, and every day they lived was a testament to it. Ethan held the carved stone again, turning it over in his hand. It hummed faintly, almost imperceptibly, a reminder that some mysteries were never fully solved. And maybe that was as it should be. Some darkness required vigilance, awareness, and courage. And Ethan now carried all three. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the world, Ethan and Caleb walked back toward town. Their steps were steady, their hearts heavy but resolute. The labyrinth had taken much, but it had also given them clarity. They had faced the impossible, and they had survived. He learned not to fear them. Instead, he accepted that some darkness could never be fully destroyed. It could only be faced, resisted, and remembered. Hale's courage became his anchor. Every time the shadows tried to lure him, he would repeat her words. "Only what is real." One evening, months after their escape, Ethan returned to the edge of the forest. The carved stone was in his pocket. He placed it carefully at the base of a tree, partly buried in the soil, as if offering a quiet memorial. "It's here," he whispered, "so we remember. So we never forget what we faced and what was lost." The wind stirred the leaves, and for a moment, he thought he heard Hale's faint voice, not in malice, but in reassurance. "I'm with you, Ethan. Always." He smiled, a bittersweet ache in his chest, and stood tall. The labyrinth was behind him, yet its lessons, its warnings, and its memories would travel with him forever. The future unknown. Though the labyrinth had been conquered, the world remained full of unseen threats. Ancient forces, dark whispers, and hidden shadows still existed beyond human comprehension. Ethan and Caleb understood that their journey was far from over. But they also knew something vital. Courage, sacrifice, and reality were stronger than the shadows that sought to destroy them. Hale's sacrifice had proven that, and every day they lived was a testament to it. Ethan held the carved stone again, turning it over in his hand. It hummed faintly, almost imperceptibly, a reminder that some mysteries were never fully solved. And maybe that was as it should be. Some darkness required vigilance, awareness, and courage. And Ethan now carried all three. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the world, Ethan and Caleb walked back toward town. Their steps were steady, their hearts heavy but resolute. The labyrinth had taken much, but it had also given them clarity. They had faced the impossible, and they had survived. And as they disappeared into the fading light, one thing was certain. The world above might be ordinary, but beneath the surface, in shadows and whispers, dangers always lingered. But so did courage and hope and the unbreakable bond forged in the darkness. The labyrinth's echoes would never fully vanish, but neither would the memory of those who had fought it. Ethan took a deep breath. The adventure had ended, but the story, the lessons, the vigilance, the sacrifices, would continue in him and in every person willing to face the shadows. And somewhere, deep inside, he felt Hale's presence. A quiet, unyielding reminder that courage was eternal and that even in the darkest of places, light could endure.